Kia ora koutou and welcome to this council meeting of Thursday the 27th of March 2025. Welcome to elected members, council staff, got a few people in the public gallery today, welcome. I'll start with the council blessing. Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana i ngā take ke mua i a mātou aroaro. E pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau mahara huapai mō ngā hapori e mahi ne mātou. Me kaha hoki mātou katoa ki a whaihua ki a tōtika ta mātou mahi. A mata maia te tiru whakamua me te hihiri, ka taia i te arahi i roto i te kotahitanga me te aroha. As we deliberate on the issues before us, we trust that we will reflect positively on the communities we serve. Let us all seek to be effective and just, so that with courage, vision and energy, we provide positive leadership in a spirit of harmony and compassion. So we move on to apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Shelley Warwick. Do I have any other apologies? I'll ask for a mover for that apology. Councillor Halliday, seconded by Councillor Kirby. All in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. I note that online we have Hurawai Paki, representing Ngāti Toa, Richard Mansell, and at some stage Councillor Cooper might pop in online too. Are there any declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda? I have nothing under 5 or 6 or 7 today. No public speakers today? No. Deputations. We do have a deputation, is that right? So, first of all, we have Kevin Burrows from the Older Persons Council speaking on the annual plan. Welcome, Kevin. Good to see you.
I didn't realise I was speaking today. I'd just come along to see them through. I did this all on Tuesday, but I'll happily...
You're on my list, so if you've got anything you'd like to share, go right ahead. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, the terms of reference in front of the council was in front of the social committee on Tuesday. I did it all there, but depends what you want me to do. You want me to go through it all again, or do you just want to? I'll answer questions.
No, I don't think you need to go through it all again. The live stream of that meeting will be available online for people if they're interested. So good to point that out in this forum, particularly for the councillors who weren't in attendance, as we're not all members of that committee. I did watch your presentation online, and it was lovely to hear the support of council staff and also quite a lot of background about the history of the Older Persons Council. So thank you very much for that presentation. Do we have any questions, particularly around the terms of reference for the Older Persons Council from elected members?
Madam Chair,
Councillor Halliday.
There was just a question that I asked on Tuesday to you, Kevin, was just, have you been happy with the process that's got you to where you are?
Yes, I think it's been a very good process, actually. Started last year, what was it, October, November? There's workshops. There was a workshop with the people involved. Contacted people on the email list, which was about 40-odd people. Asked them for an input. I understand that even a couple of councillors were involved with it. So the process has been very thorough, I think, to arrive at where we're at.
Excellent. And you're quite comfortable moving forward, that we're heading in the right direction?
I think we're in a good position from here to be moving forward from here. I would suspect we've got people are going to be appointed, so we've got applications, interviews. I am on the interview panel, so if anybody applies for the chair, I can actually make sure they get the job, actually.
Done your dash there, eh?
And so the first meeting would probably be about June. That meeting will need to be about, setting up, working together, that sort of thing. So I would imagine it'll be fully functional July, August, maybe.
Okay, lovely. No, that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. I was going to ask the same question, actually. So, yeah, it was good at the Social Sustainability Committee meeting to hear from the Kapiti Disability Advisory Group, who also had very positive feedback about this process, and the Youth Council, I understand, have been finding it a very useful exercise as well. So thanks for coming in, Kevin, and speaking, even though you didn't expect to. And thank you for the enormous amount of work you've put into the Older Persons Council, keeping it trucking along through some very challenging times. We truly appreciate the effort that you've put in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, Waikanai Boating Club.
Well, good morning, Madam Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Graham Oliver. I'm the Commodore of the Waikanai Boating Club. With me today, our funding organiser, Toby Back, who is behind me, Brian Frampton, who is in charge of our building, and of course Chris Turver, who most of you know pretty well. Kapiti is blessed with a wide range of local voluntary organisations which share much of the burden and costs of local government. One of them is the Waikanai Boating Club, which for more than half a century has accepted responsibility for managing local recreational boating and providing marine safety for Waikanai and the wider district. Our members built up a club from scratch, raising all the funds and funding necessary resources without funding support from the council. We're grateful to the KCDC, who recently helped us by extending our lease by 30 years, approving resource consents for the new building and installing a modern electronic toilet block for the public. In return, our club has carried out the cost of resource consents, including the new public toilet block and Coast Guard rescue vessel shed at a total cost of $122,000. We have saved the KCDC more than $100,000 through our volunteer member tradies and contractors disconnecting water and drainage from the old public toilet block, demolishing the old toilet blocks and removing the rubble. This is the first time we have sought substantial financial support from KCDC to see us through the next half of the century. Over the past 6 years, between the time our lease was extended and getting final resource consents, our original budget for reconstructing the original boating club has escalated with increased building costs. You will have seen from our main submission that the cost is now $2 million, of which Waikanai Boating Club has so far raised $1.1 million, with plans to raise more. The reality is that there will be a shortfall of around 500,000 and we hope that the KCDC can accept on behalf of the ratepayers that this amount fairly reflects our value to the community over the past 54 years and into the future. So far, this has been a long, arduous journey, as you can see from the photograph of Brian and the resource consent papers. For my parting comment, I just turned to Chris Turver, who has been a member of Waikanai Boating Club for 40 years and is a life member. He is one of our original Coast Guard skippers, is a former Commodore and was instrumental in establishing the Kapiti Marine Reserve and a ban on inshore commercial trawling off our coast. After Chris, I guess you will have some questions.
Thank you. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and councillors. My small contribution really is to highlight the value Kapiti has had from a voluntary organisation which has safeguarded recreational boating on our coast for 54 years. We are a community asset which survives on the goodwill of our people, and our service benefit to the people of Kapiti and beyond. We care for our environment by promoting the purposes of the Marine Reserve. We promote boating safety and rescue people in trouble, averaging between 30 and 40 call-outs in all weathers each year. We work together with the police and Kapiti Coast Guard on all major operations. Most of our work you can't see, but we are there, and our value to the community is incalculable. What we do is at our cost, with volunteer labour and resources, and we are largely self-sufficient. In fact, it goes against the grain to now ask for the first time for substantial help. but we have reached a crossroad. The existing 54-year-old building has passed its use-by date. It's too small to meet the recreational, boating and social demands of a growing population, and it leaks. The will and commitment is there by our people to maintain our services for another half-century. But we are looking for a commitment from our local authority to help keep us in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. Chris, do you want to stay in case we've got any questions? Any questions?
Are there any questions you'd like to ask? I have Toby back, who is our financial gentleman. If there's any questions you'd like to ask us.
Yeah, well, if we need to call him up to the table, we will do so. Mr. Moore.
Thank you for your presentation. This is an enormous asset to our community, and along with Councillor Pravanov and I, we went down and visited your club recently and listened to your plans and in great detail and seen the kind of work and investment you're doing there. One thing of interest to this council, and in recent days we've been talking about how we interact and how we support our young people through the district. Can you tell us a little bit about what the boating club does for young people who want to get involved, and what kind of skills you offer them and how you support them accessing what the club provides?
Yes, each year we have a handicapped kids and more unfortunate kids we take fishing. We've just had that about 2 weeks ago, and it was very successful. Usually we take them out fishing, we give them breakfast in the morning, they have 3 or 4 hours out fishing, they come back in, they have lunch. And in the past we have hired a helicopter for the afternoon, and we've taken all the crews and the kids for a trip in the helicopter around Kapiti Island. It didn't happen this year for some technical reason, but we promote safe boating. We run courses in tractor driving. We've got a course coming up in about 2 weeks to teach new boaties and how to deal with the coastal conditions. It'll cover safe boating, launching. We have a company called Predict Wind that put out a weather fax that even civil aviation use. We have CTV footage, so the police use us on occasions when they need to see what's been going on in our area. So boating, we believe we actually not own the beach, but we're the guardians of the beach. And over the years, I don't know of any accidents that have happened, and on a good day out there will be 80 boats.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just add that we have a small adjunct, the Waikanae Surf Club, and their job is solely to teach young people how to surf. Not racing or anything like that. They just learn how to use the waves and how to use the boards. It's brilliant. We also have a howler of a Christmas party for the kids.
Yeah, the Waikanae Surf Club were recipients of a Wellington Airport Community Award last year, so that was really fantastic. Councillor Coe?
Thanks, guys. Look, there's no doubt that you play a very important role in the community. I just wanted to ask about the other fundraising applications you've done to charitable organisations, whether you've applied to lotteries and various other groups, and whether completing grant applications is something that you feel comfortable with or need some help with. What sort of support is needed in that area in terms of applying to other organisations?
Firstly, Morena Tato. Toby Bates is my name, and I'm leading the support from the funding team in efforts to raise funds for the club renovation. So in answer to your question, we do have a person dedicated to the grants channel, and we have 3 live applications that we have out currently for grants. We have received one to date from New Zealand Community Trust for 150,000. And we are applying for 185,000 through 3 channels in the grants process.
Right. Have you tried lotteries at all at this stage?
Yes, we had Peter Dale on board, our former Commodore. Peter had a heavy involvement with fundraising and had close associations with lottery. We were advised that the funding was tight at the time. I think there was a lot of support going towards the effects of Gabriel up in the Central Hawke's Bay, so we wouldn't be considered at this time. That may then open up over successive years, but not right at present.
Yeah. And the other question I have is there any potential to do your building in stages? Sometimes that's the most practical option, is to do stage 1 and then stage 2.
Yeah, due to the nature of the build, and Brian Frampton can comment on this further, but because we are one big box construction with the needs to link the foundations and the roof lines, and we've got a galley and then a bar separated by a lounge construct.
So it's all integrated.
It's very much so integrated, so it makes sense to do it all one hit. Just to give you some information on our redundancy provision, we've been awaiting the reinstalment of a new galley provider to do the food function for the club. And then from there, we've engaged with our chartered accountants to produce a 3-year rolling profit and loss and cash flow forecast. From that was used so we can determine the club's capacity for debt funding. And next week, we'll be following through on inquiries we've been making with one of the main trading banks to put a line of credit in as our backup position.
Okay.
So the club's growing. The club is at 825 families at present, which represents about 2,500 individual members. The initial forecast indicates that over 24 months we should increase that to 1,300 families, which represents about 3,800 individual members. So we're getting a lot of families moving from the outskirts of, say, Wellington, now moving to Waikanae full-time, and the club is seen as a significant asset and a driver for them to relocate up to the neck of the woods. So eventually our coffers will grow as our membership increases. Part of my job is to try and avoid saddling the club members with a significant non-current liability. And at the moment, we've got very good commercial acumen within the committee team itself and with the subcommittees that have been appointed, but there's no guarantees that commercial acumen will remain, hence why trying to fund this in one entity. So by the time we actually hit the end of the build phase, we should be close to meeting that need. So we're certainly not stopping fundraising, we're carrying on in the interim, but as I think we can all acknowledge, over the last 2.5 years, it's been very challenging, and a lot of the promised channels of funding have actually been withdrawn because they were, in some cases, from business owners who've actually gone into recessionary sort of situations with statutory management, liquidations and the like.
And it does get harder as you get nearer the end. Getting the last tranche of funding is probably, it's a real tough ask. I know that from previous experience. So,
I'll also point out that the members have had a building levy applied over a 5-year window. So every new member will also have that build levy applied over a 5-year window, and that will give us a continuing fund. It's not a huge amount; it's around $60,000 at present, but there are contributions being made progressively in that channel. And then on top of that, club members are also making donations. We've targeted 100,000 of that as a limit. We're up to about the sort of 40 to 50,000 mark at the moment now from club member donations. So that's encouraging. And we're also out there actively seeking sponsorship from the businesses that are associated with the club at present.
yeah, thank you.
I've got quite a few lights on, so just the most top of mind question that you think needs to be asked now, go right ahead. But I think this is something we'll need to workshop and discuss in more detail in another forum. So I'll move on now to Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, it's. I just wanted to note a couple of things. One is that we have received from you, thank you very much, very generously, $122,000 so far in consent fees, and you've saved us, KCDC, again about $100,000 in the work on the construction. So in that, as far as the funding is concerned, how important is it to get it in a block, or can it be, is drip feed a possibility?
Yeah, great question, thank you. So the The club, the backstop position is to set up this line of credit through a commercial trading bank. The aim is to then even secure forward tranches of funding that may arrive in dollops, even over 1, 2 or 3 years. But if we know that that funding is committed and can be relied upon to be delivered, we can effectively reduce the amount of capital owing by those grants coming in progressively over that 3 year. We can plan for that. So we can service it on an interest-only provision in the interim, and then looking to retire that debt over a planned sort of staged process.
And I would just acknowledge that what the club does is it actually literally saves lives.
Oh, 100%.
In terms of what you do. So
Yeah.
that needs to be acknowledged as well.
I'd also like to point out that the club footprint provides a significant resource to the community in times of civil defence emergencies. You know, we have the ability to cook, clean, we've got bathroom facilities, and we've got good radio capabilities. So we are there as a resource to support in times of strain.
Councillor Halliday?
Yep, be succinct. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. A quick question. With regards to the space, will there be community space for like hall hire or meeting room hire or anything along that sort of line?
Yes, great question again, thank you. So the new build layout, you'll see in amongst the floor plan, we do have a dedicated meeting room. As we've highlighted to the Waikanae Community Board, it's a great place to hold regular meetings, and we'll be encouraging other community groups to work in conjunction with the club. And we've got other organisations that we're exploring involving and building them into the larger model. I come from 30 years surf lifesaving, so that, you know, is an ideal facility then to separate boating activity from swimming activity, because as you can imagine, once the two activities mix, it's not a great outcome. So to maintain, you know, our focus on safety, that's definitely a channel that we're looking to explore over time.
But during the week, say for argument's sake, if the space isn't getting used, I appreciate that it's mainly sort of weekend usage for that high volume usage with regards to boaties and all that sort of thing coming in with regards to the life saving that can happen anytime. But would that be a space that would be available, a bigger space that could be available for the local community, say during the week? For
Yes, it is available now. So we
Right.
do have certain groups coming in to use it for either craft training. We've got the Coast Guard training for boaties to do their boat masters courses and those sort of functions. But certainly the club is not opposed to having community groups working with us.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Councillor Gofford?
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Graham, Toby and Chris. You've alluded to this facility as being a valued community asset, and I think you've just answered most of the questions here. But and you've got civil defence active there, youth. You're looking after youth. Can you think of any other community facilities that you're catering for? Any community activities that you're catering for with the building?
So we are focused on working very closely with our Coast Guard cousins. Although they are a separate entity, they are very closely aligned with what we do. We share, obviously, the rescue support through our radio capabilities. The other community groups that use us are wide and varied. So any organisation that needs any space, I think we've had art groups coming in, doing fly fishing, and there are affiliated other groups through the Clubs of New Zealand arrangements that will come in and use us as well. So we do actually have a pretty wide exposure to the community and that level of support. I guess the next stage is, once we finish the build, is to then re-promote ourselves in that space.
Thank you. If you wanted to visit the facility, do you have to be a member?
So with the visitation rules under our constitution, you do need to be a member, but you can visit on 3 occasions and be signed in as a guest. After 3 visits, you're expected to fill in one of our membership forms and come and join formally. We do have a lot of pressure from social members to join the club, and we have a backlog that's starting to build. To give you an idea how quickly that can build up, when I first joined the club about 5 years ago, we were sitting at about 300 members, and that went up to where it is today over about a 2 to 3 year period. So very rapid growth, and we're going to experience that pressure bubble again very shortly.
Thank you.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, thank you so much for coming along and really showing us what you do in the community for Waikanae and for the district as well, and also for how this build has run. And I understand that I think the slab started a couple of days ago. How you've actually managed this with really strong financial oversight. So my question is that so obviously you have supported council in some respects financially, and so you've come along here today to ask for some form of support from council here. So what ideally would that form look like?
So the cash cheque or credit card, but the lump sum approach would be our favoured approach, in that we could certainly deploy those funds as cash without needing to resort to term debt, because that then avoids the club being saddled with a repayment commitment. So that's by far our preferred option. However, given I understand that the council's facing the same financial pressures as the rest of us out there in the business world and as ratepayers, and we're at a time where we're tightening our belts. So even if the funding was phased in over a period, whether that be 1 or 2 years even, we can plan for that and we can cater to that within our financial model. So certainly the commitment in whatever form would be appreciated, and we will cater to that in whatever form it is received in.
Thank you very much, and all the best.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in today. I see this as the start of the conversation with you about how we might be able to assist and support, and thank you for the assistance and support you've provided to us to date. So all the best, and we'll look forward to further conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you.
Thank you.
And thank you from the funding side, and if you need us as a resource to help out with your group process, then we're more than happy to come in and work alongside you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, members' business, any leaves of absence can be communicated to my office. We have no matters of an urgent nature, nothing under item 10. So, we are now reviewing the Kapiti Coast Youth Council, Older Persons Council, and the Kapiti Disability Advisory Group. Item 11.1 on page 28.
Forget me.
Yeah.
So we have Brendan Owens and Emma Hexton to take us through this report.
Morning, everyone.
Could I have a bit of quiet, please? Thank you. Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're just going to take you through the work that's been done on the advisory groups, the 3 advisory groups. I've got Emma with me from the Connectors Community Group, Monique's down the back, Nordia. They've all done a lot of work on this this report, the 3 advisory groups. So I'll pass over to Emma now just to give it a really quick overview of the process over the last maybe 9 months, working with Kevin and the rest of the chairs and the groups on this. So thanks, Emma.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you. So this report provides the new terms of reference for the Kapiti Coast Youth Council, the Disability Advisory Group, and replaces the Older Persons Council. The purpose of the groups is to advise council on the needs and thoughts of people in those communities that they represent, so young people in terms of the Youth Council and the other groups. The groups have a long-standing history with council that I wanted to acknowledge from the beginning of the early 2000s, and the groups are made up of members of those communities and are volunteers within this process. So I wanted to thank them for the work that they had done alongside us in terms of the engagement and consultation process. We have undertaken a robust process in terms of the engagement, a range of interviews with whoever wanted to talk to us about their ideas going forward. We've had workshops with the groups, we've tested and tweaked the terms of references alongside the groups and the chairs as we've gone. The key themes are outlined from those consultations are outlined in the report. Things like more diversity, stronger processes and clear recruitment and selection processes. The new terms of reference sit in the scope of the overall review of the advisor groups, and this work also contributes to knowledge within that review. The terms of reference are consistent across the three groups, but allow for unique elements required to meet the needs of the different groups. The terms of reference will also be supported by an operational document which provides the back-end delivery and how we support the advisory groups, basically the detail to the terms of references. The terms of reference states that the groups provide a formal update to the council committee 6 monthly. The groups span across the work of council and a specific council is not identified in the terms of reference. This is to ensure that the terms of reference remain accurate should changes be made to the governance structure and delegations in future training. So the report is tabled as read. Ngā mihi.
And we will note that this has come to the Social Sustainability Committee prior to this meeting, so the more fulsome report was available there and can be watched online. So I'll take questions. Councillor Spires.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just under the Youth Council Terms of Reference, Code of Conduct, it says that the Code of Conduct lays out advisory group members, including the Youth Council, are expected to behave. Does that mean they're expected to behave just when they're at the meeting, or is that their entire life?
At the meetings. It's their role at the meetings and their role in terms of the Youth Council.
When they're acting as a Youth Council
Yes.
member? Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Very good question, Councillor Spires. Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, I've got a few things just wanted to touch on. Just a little bit of housekeeping, a bit of it. First one is in regards to the Youth Council's terms of reference. There's potentially going to be members from Otaki that we want to encourage to come down. Is there any provision there, or is there going to be provision with regards to looking at transporting them down, or some sort of way to facilitate the ease of the youth from Otaki to come down?
Yes, that's across all three advisory groups in terms of support that people need to be able to attend meetings.
Cool, okay. On page, with regards to the selection process for the members, in the other two terms of reference, there is an elected member as part of that process. For the Youth Council, there's not. I was just wondering why that was.
There is an elected member that will be appointed as part of the Youth Council, so it should be there. That will be a correction that we will make.
Okay, so that'll get added in. Okay,
Yes.
That's cool. On page 38, and it's actually noted in a couple of the and the other ones as well. It talks to the last point, responsibilities of appointed elected members. The second to last point, from the bottom, says we'll ensure all opportunities to speak on behalf of the Youth Council are generally reflective of the group's interest in hand, and it is not without their knowledge or unknowingly on behalf of. Can you just enlighten that? Because some of the other ones talk about sort of almost needing permission to speak on behalf of the groups that are being represented. And the reason I brought that up is that councillors take opportunities where they present themselves as such. So there's got to be a bit of trust that works both ways with regards to that representation that they're bringing to the table as well. And being specific about sort of almost needing permission from the chair to speak on the group's behalf could become problematic.
That was something that was discussed with the group, and I think part of it is when we worked with them on that section was around the fact that they don't have one chair, so they all work together. So they were really keen to work together in terms of any statements going forward. That doesn't mean that they're not out talking about the Youth Council and what they're doing, that they just want to have a really good line of communication between the group. They have a very strong WhatsApp group. They're in there all the time talking about what they're doing.
Yeah, look, I get that. It was more along the lines of the council representing them, say, at this table. Councillors, for a point in case would be the waste minimalisation. I'm involved in that group, and part of my role is to bring that up where I can, so to speak. I don't go back to them to double check that it's okay for me to bring it up when I'm at the meeting or specifically at the meeting. I just do wonder whether that needs to be specifically in there, that permission is needed, because we should be all working together. And if a councillor is not representing the group properly, then it'll be up to the group to haul them up to account for that, or if they're speaking out of line, being hauled up to account for their actions, so to speak.
That makes sense, and we can have a look at that.
Yep, that'd be great. In the Older Persons Council, page 44.1, sorry, bear with me there for a sec, talks, roles of the advisory group members, act with the advisory group's best collective when engaging with members of the communities they represent. What does that mean?
That means that the groups were really clear, or that particular group was very clear about how they work as a collective. So that they have a culture that they set, that they have an understanding about what they think is good practice and what they think collectively around particular things going forward.
Cool. Okay. I was just wondering if maybe the wording just needs to be slightly different to make that a bit clearer. That was all, but just feedback. Again, on page 45, I noted that it was, again, is not without their knowledge, speaking on behalf of as well, with that group as well. That's on page 45, which I don't have here, that'd be right. All in general, speaking on groups is generally reflective of groups' interests and not without their knowledge, i.e. unknowingly on behalf of. Again, yeah, it just, that ambiguity, it just could mean that it gives groups the ability, potentially, I'm just a little bit concerned about that, that's all. Older Persons Council, page 47. Sorry, this is a disability advisory group. I was the Older Persons one just before that. Yep, this is the Kapiti Disability Group. The Council's commitment, providing information well in advance in accessible ways, get that, but just on the point that's at the top of the next page, says provide accessible information in a timely way, all engagements. I just wanted to double check, is it a double up, or does that mean to say provide accessibility information in a timely way so that people are aware of the accessibility of a space?
Sorry, where are you, Councillor Halliday?
Page 47 of the agenda.
Yeah.
At the top of the page. It says provide accessible information in a timely way in all engagements. In the previous page, it says, the third from the bottom on page 46, says provide information well in advance in accessible ways. I get that from the disability group, so it'll be in the best way that it's received by them, depending on perhaps a potential disability. But I was wondering whether the other one was provide accessible information in a timely way for engagements. I'm thinking of maybe that's accessibility information, in other words, the accessibility to a venue.
Both of them are about accessible information and engagement. So it's about so we need to be the first one is we need to be providing information well in advance, and obviously it needs to be in an accessible way so that when we come, so a strategy or something is coming to the advisory group, we're doing it we're doing it as early on in the process that we can possibly do to be able to ensure that they have good engagement. And then providing accessible information across all, so in terms of all engagements, that's within anything that we're doing right across. So the groups are really clear that they wanted to have it in their formal meetings, that information is provided early, but across anything that we're doing that we're engaging the groups with. And it is focused on being accessible rather than providing accessibility information.
Okay. Do we need to have something in there that lets people know what the accessibility of venues is?
That is part of what we do, and that's part of the operational documentation and what we do and what we deliver in terms of those groups.
Okay.
And it needs to be unique to each person as well. So as part of the way that we work with people in the groups is to make sure that their needs are met.
Okay, all right. Next one down is page 47 again on membership. So the members with a disability will have lived experience with disability themselves. Fully get that. But excluding parents of children with disabilities, I'm just wondering why that sentence is in there when in the next paragraph, in addition, a maximum of 2 members can be people who do not have a disability themselves, but who have a dependent with a disability, which to me would be potentially a person who has a child with a disability. And knowing, I fully appreciate the challenges that any person with a disability has, but also the challenges that their caregivers have as well is quite significant. And to me, that's a little bit of a slap in the face.
So the members of the advisory group will have a lived experience with a disability themselves. In addition, there's an opportunity for up to 2 members who do not have a disability but have a dependent with a disability.
Yep, so I'm just going to come back to why we've got excluding parents with children with disabilities in there. Sorry?
So
Just let council staff answer, please, elected members.
do you want to say something? Yep.
Sorry, I'm just maybe missing the understanding.
In terms of, it's just talking about the membership of the group.
Yep.
So, so we want members of the group with the lived experience.
Yep.
And then in addition, there's 2 spots on top of the membership for support people.
Yeah, I get that.
Yep.
So why do we have to have that excluding parents with children with disabilities in there? So I take that offline. As such, I don't want to have it backwards and
No,
forwards.
we're approving this today, so any concerns that you have need to be rectified
Well, actually,
today.
Madam Chair, I did bring this up on Tuesday. I was
I
told,
know- yeah, I
was
know you
told
did.
that this was a forum to do that
Yeah.
because that was just a deputation that was coming
Yeah,
here.
so let's
as
sort it
such.
out. We need to sort it out now, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the reason it says excluding parents of children with disabilities was that that in discussions with the advisory group, that was the group that could not represent themselves in the advisory group. So we're going to have a group of people that have lived experience.
Gotcha.
So
I
the
get it.
majority
Okay.
of the group should have lived experience, but children with a disability cannot represent themselves within that group. So therefore, there's an opportunity as an exception to the rule, really, to have a maximum of 2 members
Yep.
who do not have a disability themselves, but they are caregivers for children with a disability. As it's written there, it says dependent with disability.
Yep. I get that understanding now. I do get that. I just wonder maybe it could be worded a little bit differently there, perhaps.
What about we just put C below after excluding parents of children with disabilities - C below?
I still don't think it needs to be there, but that's not my call. I'm not dying in a ditch over it at all. But for me to go, oh, that seems a bit weird, I'm sure other people will read this will do the same thing.
Okay, do you have
That's
any
it for me.
other thoughts?
Can I
Councillor
make a
Hand-
comment, Your Worship?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I just suggest that perhaps in future we deal with these grammatical questions prior to the meeting so that we're not all sitting here wordsmithing a document? I'm just thinking about the intent of our council meetings and the audience that you have here and the best use of our time. So that would be my suggestion.
Councillor Halliday?
Yeah, in a perfect world, that would be ideal. And quite frankly, I would have liked to have had this discussion at the Social Sustainability Committee. The problem I have with that is that the majority of the time I'm so busy that I'm actually looking at the agenda till the night before these meetings. I don't have time.
I'm not challenging the use of your time, councillor.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying that a better use of the council's time and all of the council officers' time at a council meeting would not be to wordsmith documents.
Yeah, I think your point is
Um,
made.
Okay, just be really nice to have an opportunity, perhaps in a forum where I can wordsmith it if need be, just before it comes, to do that. But
How about we how about, is there a recommendation around minor editorial changes?
Yep, that's cool. And
And it-
fully appreciate what's being said by the CEO. It's not my intent to be. I prefer not to be doing it here, to be honest.
We'll add a motion around minor editorial changes, and then we can sort that out later, Councillor Halliday.
Cool.
We could even name you. Councillor Hanford?
Yeah, kia ora. Thanks, Emma, Brendan, and the team for all of your mahi on this, and useful to be at the Social Sustainability Committee meeting to get a bit more background. Just a couple of questions, mainly pertaining to the Youth Council draft terms of reference. Under the point around work program, and that the Youth Council will develop an annual work program, that this will be in alignment with Council's strategic directions and the outcome of the long-term plan. Does this mean that we're expecting kind of all of our mahi and our strategic thinking and planning to shape theirs, or is there an opportunity for them to, to create a work program that, some of which doesn't necessarily align with ours, but that we negotiate with them based on what we feel is important to them and what comes forward as their priorities? I just want to make sure so keen to understand the sentiment behind that, if we just expect them to take on board our long-term plan and fit within that, or if they can kind of push back as well.
So a big part of the conversation with the Youth Council was them wanting to sit within what council is about and understand what council's goals and outcomes are, so that they could align with those. Having said that, they also sit alongside us in terms of the development of the Youth Action Plan. So I think it would be highly unlikely that anything that the Youth Council would do would sit outside of what council is about. And the role of the advisory groups is to benefit council as well as young people. So I think that the reason that's in there, and it's right across all three advisory groups, is that the role of these groups is our work, is what we intend to do, what council intends to do in our district. So it does need to sit within that. If there were things that came up that were outside of that, there could be a discussion. But basically, yes, they sit within what we're doing in the long-term plan.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for clarifying that. Another question with regards to council's commitment and the kind of bullet points sitting underneath that. I'm wondering where the taking on board of feedback comes in. Like, for example, is it a commitment that we want to make to be open to, really specific feedback about how we engage with these advisory groups and tweaking and kind of changing tact where we need to? I'm just, wondering, or whether you think that's covered off already?
In terms of feedback, sorry, is the question that there should be more around providing feedback?
I was thinking more, so for example, under the Youth Council terms of reference, we're committed to doing best practice youth participation. The council will, the council will be open to feedback on how to meaningfully engage with young people based on their experiences, or something that just, I guess, signals the fact that we, if any of the advisory groups feel like the relationship isn't working particularly well at any given time, that it's upon us to commit to providing an open forum where that can be worked through. Not to say that we'll ever need it, but just more the feedback about the relationship and the working together, not the feedback in terms of work programs, ideas.
I understand that. So definitely a part of best practice engagement or youth participation and decision making, that is there's about 5 key principles, and that is one of them, around making sure that you have a relationship with young people in those advisory capacity, where you can do that. So we do have that in the operational document about the mechanisms to be able to do that. And not just in a formal way, like you need to make a formal request for something, but that is an ongoing part of the way that the principles of how we work with the group.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
If there's anything we need to follow up on further, we can do that Okay, I'm not seeing any more lights, so I'll ask for a mover for these recommendations. Councillor Kirby, seconded by Councillor Wilson, and we'll add a recommendation C, that council delegates to the mayor the ability to make any changes, any minor editorial changes. And I'll commit Councillor Halliday to working with you on that. The mayor and the chief executive, yeah.
As the mover of A and B, I'm happy to include C in that.
Seconder, you happy with that? Right of introduction.
Thank you. Firstly, just want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that's gone into these terms of reference. When we first started as a council 2.5 years ago, the review of our advisory groups was a primary piece of work that we were all looking to have happen. And so it's really nice to be able to say that, again, another thing that this council has achieved in this triennium in terms of this process of review. So just want to acknowledge, as staff already have in their introduction, the work of these three groups and their patience, I guess, in the process and their commitment to being involved with staff at this stage. I note that our Older Persons Council through this process will disband and be reformed as the Older Persons Advisory Group. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the group of people that over a long period of time have contributed to Council's processes and provided us with advice and information out of that Older Persons Council. And I look forward to some more robustness around that group and what they can bring to us through this terms of reference and the shift that's taken place. So I'd encourage Council to support this because I think it'll be great for us to continue to have formal ways that we are engaging with portions of our community that have a strong voice and need to have a strong voice across our work. So thank you again.
Great, Councillor Halliday.
Certainly endorsing Councillor Kirby's words there. And the fact that I just made some comments here, I don't want to detract from the fantastic work that's being done here. Being a second-term councillor, I was involved. I was a councillor on the Older Persons Council as well as the Health Advisory Group last triennium, and I know the frustration, Kevin, but also I wanted to acknowledge Trevor as well. Comrades in arms with regards to how things were going to be changed as we move forward. And I appreciate there's been internal challenges with regards to capacity. That's now been sorted, and we're seeing fantastic outcome with regards to terms of reference that we currently have, which helps tidy up and legitimise those groups with regards to pathways that go both ways. So I've really enjoyed the process with regards to getting to where we are, but really, really looking forward to seeing those committees sort of really, grab hold of the kaupapa that they have and us supporting them as we move forward. And so I think this is all part. We constantly get hammered about how we how we link with our communities. Well, I mean, heck, this is to me a very, very, very constructive way to give us another pathway into our communities, but a more exacting pathway with specific groups as such. And then it's looking at how they reach out. So well done, guys. And looking forward to working with the groups as we move into the future.
Councillor Wilson.
Oh, it's been said actually, but it's good.
It's great. So it's been moved and seconded. I'd like to talk all those thanks to council staff. I think what we heard at the Social Sustainability Committee meeting was that this has been an extremely positive and interactive and inclusive process. And I'd like to congratulate all of the staff who've been involved. Absolutely great piece of work. Right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to just remember the previous CEO of Age Concern who passed away during the process of this, who was a significant part of Dermot, that's right, who's a significant part of our Older Persons Council, and I think would be quite excited if he was sitting here to have seen the progress that has been made. And so just to take a moment to acknowledge him and his passing, and the feel that I know is around our community of him having laid some groundwork that we're seeing some of the results of today. So just wanted to finish with that.
Thank you very much. And I think we should remember all of the people who've contributed to the Older Persons Council over the years. Too many to name. Have just been, and all of whom would be really excited to see this piece of work today. So I'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. Just before we move on, I'll note that Councillor Cooper has joined us online, and that Cam Butler has sent his apologies. We'll just note them for the agenda. As he's not a member, we don't need to add him to the apologies, but if the minutes could note that he sent his apologies for this meeting. So item 11.2, there was an attachment which has been available on the online agenda, but which wasn't added to the attachments on the hub. That has now been added, but in the interests of councillors having the full set of information in front of them, I'll postpone that until after lunch. It's not a huge thing to read through, but it'll just give councillors a chance to have a look at that document before we consider that paper. So we'll move on to item 11.3, which is adoption of the policy work programme.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask for clarification? Are you leaving that till after lunch or after a morning tea break?
I think after lunch.
I was hoping we'd be finished before lunch. just a hope.
True. The original calendar invite did have us finishing by lunch. It's since been extended, but let's do it after a morning tea break. Is that okay with everybody? It's only like 9 pages and contains a bit of repetition from the appendices that are already there. So, okay, we'll do it after morning tea. So, adoption of the policy work programme, 11.3.
Kia ora. Today we are tabling with you the refresh of our policy work program. This is something we do triennially. We today are tabling 2024 to 2027. We have previously briefed you on the prior policy work program, progress against that, and the key items that are proposed for the next 3 years. Included in here is the current standard that we would report back to you 6 monthly on our progress. One thing I will note is the refreshed policy work program now extends to include policies and bylaw work strategies, our district planning program, research and monitoring, and the long-term plan. So the intention was to give you a comprehensive view of all work we had underway. We will come back on items within the program separately to seek agreement to the approach and timelines as we normally do. So that I just want to clarify what you are tabled with today. So this is really the overview of the package as a whole that we're seeking your agreements on. We don't have any further comments to make other than what's in the paper, and are happy to take questions. Thank you.
Any questions? This has been workshopped and discussed previously, so we've definitely had a chance to have some very meaningful input into this, so thank you to staff. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, just a question in relation to 11.2 and the alcohol licensing. Is it possible to take from this that that we would not be in a position to have any increases in fees prior to 2027?
I think the short answer is we can. The conversation we previously had with you was that as part of the annual plan and the consultation in it, we're going to progress something. The current position in the annual plan is we aren't progressing it in the way that we thought we would. So we're going to come back to you, but we wouldn't be tabling that today in terms of how it moves forward, but we will come back. So we wanted to call that out to make sure we'd addressed the point that we'd previously raised publicly with you.
Yeah, I'm fine
Sorry,
with
I'm
that.
not
It's
quite.
just-
I'm not quite clear on that answer. So we are not going to consult on a change in fees and charges through this annual plan because we're not doing a full consultation on it, and we'll come back to talk about the next annual plan or the long-term plan. Or can we do it outside of that process?
What we're going to do is we're going to come back and talk to you about the potential changes before we obviously go to consultation. Our proposal is that we'd be incorporating that into the long-term plan, which would be the next space and time that we'd be making changes. If you recall, when we talked to you about our new fee structure, we were iteratively staging some changes so that the changes you've already agreed are going to process or progress, so that will happen. Any additional things we want to do, which we would consult on, we're proposing would be through effectively the long-term plan because we won't have another annual plan before that time. We will come and talk to you about the options before that though.
Okay, so just to...
So no, there's an annual
Sorry.
plan next year. There is another annual plan before the long-term plan.
If there's an opportunity to do it through there, then we'll come back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, no, just in terms of an opportunity to raise that recovery to 100%, which in fact is never 100% because we've got all sorts of costs that aren't there. So this wouldn't preclude that from happening prior to consulting in 2027, or it would?
I think what we've initially proposed in the recommendation was that, as Chris alluded to, current arrangements were to be phased in with some changes that came into effect for the long-term plan just agreed, and with the next phase of increases aligning with 2027. And so that's why the proposal was to align and have that discussion into that next long-term plan. But as mentioned, if there is consultation as part of an annual plan process next year, we could also look to bring those options forward for consideration and consultation as part of that process, if that's the desire of the table.
Thanks. I think that makes it clear, doesn't it,
That's
Councillor
cool.
Wilson? Yep. Councillor Hanford?
Yeah, kia ora, thank you, and thanks for the workshop that we had not too long ago. That was really useful. A couple of questions. Firstly, about the youth approach. So I'm just wondering and because this is the policy work program, the youth action plan, as I understand it, isn't referenced in here for that reason. But considering that we're doing the youth survey now and we've got like over 1,000 responses to that, is there a reason why the youth approach is not kind of timelined to be done until mid-2027?
I think I'll make the note that that is based off. Sorry, the youth approach in here starts in 2025 and work progresses. That will include engagement and our usual consultation, and we are proposing that it pops up there at the other end in 2027. That is true. That's based on the pace at which our program is progressing currently. If there's an opportunity with the work that's underway that you've mentioned through survey and other things, that it comes out a little quicker, that's possible. I would say, from my perspective, we've allowed ourselves some leeway to say the usual process that we'd undertake, including our usual consultation, and it would be with youth and others, would ensure that we gave sufficient time for us to come back to you. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, so we've set out timeframes that we think reasonably cover the process that we would usually go through. When we come back to you, though, specifically on that item, we would agree the timeframes with you and the approach taken, so they may shift slightly. So this is our best guesstimate for what a usual process would look like, if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And
Sorry, that kind of explains the end of that bar, but wasn't part of the point that we've started work on that already with the
youth action
engagement
plan,
that we've
that's what
done?
I'm
So
wondering about the
potentially
relationship between the two.
we could say that we've started it already.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say when I looked at the detail. We've actually started in 2025. So for us, we've packaged that together. It doesn't outline every single element of each item that connects, but yes, we have started that. Yes, that's underway. That's meant to be signalled in the diagram, and it's starting earlier than 27. So it just feeds through. As I said, we would propose to you our usual process to establish an approach or strategy or a policy, and that's what we'd be coming back to talk to you about. So a survey would be pre-work to that. It wouldn't be the process itself, if that's clearer.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. No,
Councillor
thank you.
Hanford, did you have more?
Yeah, a couple more questions, sorry, but I'll keep them
No,
brief.
good.
In terms of the climate strategies, probably knew I was going to raise this at least once. We talked, I think, at the last, or at least in the workshop, maybe about how those are labelled, like not maybe being as sub-strategies, but instead as strategies. I think the mayor's nodding. I feel like maybe you brought that up, Janet. Yeah. So just, wondering if that could be, taken into consideration. But I don't know if it needs a response.
It can, and I think maybe we can confirm with you offline and then bring it back to what they'll be called. For the purpose of this, I think it's reflected the conversation, and I do acknowledge that in debate you did talk about sub-strategy versus other labels. We haven't come back round to engage back on that, but we have taken that point down.
Cool. Yeah, acknowledging it's a relatively minor thing, but just to raise it again. The other slight concern I have is that at the end of year 3, so mid 2027, we've got all of these strategies that are supposedly going to be completed then. So if you think about those, our ability to fully consider all of the things that would be coming to the next council, that's going to be a pretty. I'm just wondering why we haven't kind of staged them so that they're finishing at slightly different times, so that people have the capacity to consider, for example, it just looks like everything's butting up to that point.
Sorry, I just want to clarify. A lot of the timing aligns to the long-term plan, and I'll say to you, in reality, when we come back to get your approval of the approach we're taking for each one, those timeframes will likely be adjusted to reflect what is agreed with you. For now, it goes through to the end of the term of this period, subject to further work. So, as I noted earlier, this is for us our best estimate of the approach that's taken, and we need to come underneath this to come back and say this is exactly the phases of work and therefore the time. So they won't all be perfectly aligned, and I agree that would be very hard to progress in terms of them all being here at one point in time. It will be realigned as we come back to you. The intention, though, is it does go across the period. And if I do look at something like our long-term plan policies, that's deliberate because it does come into an end point, and some of the other work needs to feed into that as well. So there'll be some things that are not negotiable, and where we've put an asterisk in, we've tried to indicate we absolutely have to work to that timeframe. Other than that, some of them will shift.
Okay, cool. And one final question. So the climate and resilience strategy is noted there as being on hold. Is that because all of the component parts are not yet signed off on? But
Yes.
I'm wondering whether, technically that is scheduled. Well, it's actually in progress because we're working on the component parts kind of as we move through time. I feel like that just kind of sends the wrong message that we've put on hold our climate and resilience strategy when actually it's happening, but it's just now happening in component pieces.
Happy to take that feedback. I think we'd erred on the side of trying to be as transparent as possible, that we're recognising that we have changed direction, but do agree that you have made resolutions and decisions that you want to split it up. So we can adjust that to reflect that decision. So if that was the case, it would be going back to being green, because it would be part of an updated scheduled decision. If the table was happy with that, we just didn't want to do that, and it appeared like we had agreed something, changed our mind, and then said it was on track. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Coe.
Yep. I'd just like to say this is a massive work program. It's huge. I'm assuming that the CEO is putting in sufficient resources in place to achieve it. It just shows the amount of effort we're required to put in. That's not necessarily visible to the public out there in terms of a tangible outcome. I wanted to follow up on the youth approach in a similar vein to Sophie. We are discussing our youth development approach later on today, and it just concerns me that we are making key financial decisions in the absence of an up-to-date youth approach. Is there some way that we can combine the two things so that we're making significant decisions within a better strategic framework?
I think the comment I'll make is in a similar vein to the age-friendly approach. A lot of energy and work went into ensuring that across the community, those who had a role to play had a chance to have input. And in relation to youth development, that will be one element of the youth approach. And I'll give you an example of that. There is, outside of the decision you'll make around youth development today, a lot of work undertaken with, I'm going to say, a wider cohort, including even central government, the Ministry for Social Development, and Mills Albert's pathway for skills and experience. There's some work going on in the education and skills space that we would expect to inform the youth approach. So it would have mixed views coming into it about youth overall. That is why it would take longer, because we were trying to ensure that we had a comprehensive picture we could have on the table around youth. And those were just a couple of elements, by the way. I know it's wider than that. And so in the interim of that happening, there are some decisions that we know are coming up. And as we can, we're trying to ensure that we can get the best information on the table. And the point around the survey that we've just undertaken and the action plan are an attempt to support the decisions we're making. More widely than that, though, there'll be other things that are put on the table, and that may inform and shape future decisions. Do acknowledge that it's critical to have that strategic position on the table.
Yeah, so there might be information provided on the way through in this process.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, to inform
Yes.
decisions as we go along.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So certainly this is a massive work program, and I have to say that I really like the layout on page 105. It actually makes it really clear in terms of, I suppose, what our program is broken down into the various elements there. What it also shows is that a lot of these activities are well overdue in terms of when they should have been completed. And I suppose, I'm not sure, no doubt there was a lot of planning that went into finding those initial timeframes. And I'd like to think that what we have here moving forward is actually not going to be pushed out even further. I also, in relation to the climate change work, I just wanted to reiterate what Councillor Hanford said in terms of the climate change and resilience strategy, which is in 2007, which is actually put on hold. And in reality, you know, that probably needs to come all the way back to here, because that was due to be completed, I think, the end of last year as well, rather than just out there, and it's not actually on hold anyway. So I'm not sure how you do that. And I suppose the reason I'm saying this is because going forward, this will be used as a template, so it does actually need to reflect where we are now and where we're going. And if you have that there, like, you know, it's not, it doesn't probably, well, it doesn't reflect reality. And I suppose then also when you look at the climate strategy, so it's my understanding that is also going to be broken into those sub-strategies as well, but that's not particularly evident in here.
I'm just going to test the environment strategy.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is based on where we are today, and I do confirm that we are about to have some discussion around that point. Do you want me to respond to the other 2 points?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes. Our proposed work program for 2021 to 2023/4 did change. I think you're aware that we had obviously a turnover in government. They've changed direction on a lot of things. A lot of the work we had underway around waters and other things paused as we tried to understand where things were going to land. We did not want to progress work and then have to redo it. And so we've left it on there, and we've acknowledged it in places that we have paused or changed or repaced ourselves in terms of that work. And the waters is an example. If I were to go through the reforms that have progressed since 2021 to today, it is massive. And so it's hit our work program very strongly. We are resetting though and recalibrating, and the climate strategy and our approach to that is an example of that, and it will be the same for the environment strategy. So we're trying to reflect as best we can what is happening and those changes, so that it doesn't look like we've just changed our mind and put a new date in. There's reasons behind every change that has occurred. I take the point about the box around the climate change and resilience strategy. I think what we might do is take that point offline, because our intention was to actually show transparently the change. But if that's more confusing than helpful, it might be that we just take it off, and then as we go through the process we can confirm where that lands. I also do want to note that the policy work program itself, we do come to you now and say this is broadly what we're proposing. The reason that we come back every 6 months to go, here's where we're at, here's what's happened, here's what needs to change, is that the reality is it is a live process, and we do have to react to legislative change and other things that we are required to follow. And that does push this program round, and we try to ensure that we document that and reflect that in what we come back to you on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we need to have a little bit of a discussion about, we're making good progress towards sorting out the climate change strategies and how they fit, and what we're doing around those different elements, which are actually a response to something. Climate change isn't something we're trying to achieve, right?
Exactly.
And it's just an external driver, but the activities that we're taking in response to that are discrete. So I think that's a conversation that's ongoing, and I think not something we're going to sort out today. But in the meantime, I think we just take that box out and maybe just have a note at the bottom. These are how these are merged potentially into one strategy is a topic for further discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Cofford?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge the work, the massive mahi gone into the planning, the district planning part of the district, and the work that's gone into it. The workshops, even the implementation step by step of an urban design panel, which is going to help us out in the long term. But just with regard to Plan Change 3, which is due in 2026 and the district plan in 2027, in the interim, is the operative district plan going to continue as the rule book for the planning in the district, or is that going to change? And with regard to the government repealing the RMA Act very shortly, how will that affect the operative district plan? Will that continue on until 2007 and then the change implemented then?
I just want a clarification point. When you refer to Plan Change 3, which is our Rewa Plan Change, did you mean that, or Plan Change 2, which was around medium density?
Oh, actually both. Yeah, Plan
Okay.
Change 2 and the Plan Change 3. I think Plan Change 2 is underway.
Plan Change 2 is operative, so
Yeah.
it's active now. Our district planning manager, Jason Holland, had mentioned that we're coming back to you to talk about the ratification of that, given the changes that are being made by central government. So we will be back.
Okay.
Currently it's operative, so it is operative right now. Ka Rewa is in progress. It has been notified though, and so that is active now, with a future decision to be made to confirm where that lands. In relation to central government change, what I will say is we have our eyes and ears on progress in Wellington constantly. There's a lot, I'm going to say from what I've heard, there is a direction set, but less clarity on transition and timing. There is a very, very strong legislative program that supposedly will be landed by December this year. We don't yet have the timing for all of that and are not clear on the transition or timeframes that would sit behind that. So I do acknowledge that there's been a lot of public discussion and announcement on intention. Underneath that, however, we don't have clarity on what that actually looks like at a local level and what go live would look like. We have to follow legislation of the day, and so this is based off the legislation we have to work to now. And I will note that at a recent LGNZ meeting, our ministers acknowledged that we need to work to the legislation of the day. So that is what we are doing.
Thank you. That's great.
And they certainly made that very clear. It was quite helpful, actually.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cofer. Great questions. Councillor Kirby?
Just a quick question from me. Would it be helpful if we added a recommendation just noting the fact that this is a moving feast? Because the way the recommendations are worded at the moment is it's solid, this is what's happening, and we're locking it in. And from what the answers to the questions so far have signalled is that may change any minute, depending,
Do you
depending
want
on
to
what's
jot something
happening.
down and pass it behind you?
Depending on what the current minister of the day happens to say in a speech may change things. So just wanting to ask, would that be helpful for us to put a recommendation like that in?
Yeah, I think it's useful to note that alongside the, I'll say, endorsement of the proposed plan as at date, yes, happy for that to happen.
Okay, thank you. I should probably just say the recommendation says adopt, which is quite firm language around the policy program. So I think probably having alongside that a noting would be helpful. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to jot something down and pass
We'll
it
work
behind
on
you?
something.
Yeah. Councillor Halliday.
Yep, just a quick one for me. Just excellent document. Where does this sit on the council? This is a public document, otherwise it would be in public excluded. So does this sit somewhere in the council information? Because it would actually be quite good to reference it with some of the queries that I certainly get with regards to what is it the council does.
Thank you. We have a webpage on the policy work program, and subject to your decision today, we will be updating it and putting this on there and ensuring that what is on there reflects what our plans are going forward. When you make decisions, we will be updating that page so that there's clarity on where and why and how if we are moving forward, that changes. We will then update this every 6 months, and that version will be made available online.
That's great. If you could just, when that is on there, if you could just let us know.
Absolutely.
Would be much appreciated.
Councillor Wilson.
Oh, sorry, I don't actually have a question. I just, when we move into debate, I'll speak.
Thank you for foreshadowing that you will contribute to debate. Councillor Bravano.
Yeah, thank you. So I have to say, just following up on what Councillor Kirby said, I was actually going to suggest also that an amendment is made to the recommendation 1, adopting the policy, and I certainly accept what Councillor Kirby has said, but also with amendment in relation to the climate and resilience strategy as well.
Could you please repeat that?
Yeah, so obviously we've talked about amending the location of the climate change and resilience strategy on this work program, which is shown on 105. So that also needs to occur as well.
Do you understand?
I mean, needs to be written into the it's subject to amendments.
Yes, so are you saying for recommendation A, as shown in attachment 1 to this report, even if it was in brackets, subject to editorial decisions?
Yes,
yeah?
yes, please.
Absolutely, that's fine. We can do that.
So subject to editorial decisions.
And whatever Councillor Kirby also includes.
It might be covered off with Councillor Kirby's suggestion, actually, with noting that it's a point in time.
Yeah, well, I think I don't think by having it as a on hold signal that is actually correct at this point in time.
I agree. Okay, we're working on that.
Yep.
Okay, it might be a good time to take a 10-minute break. Actually, we'll take 15 minutes to allow a 10-minute break and 5 minutes to have a look at that document that's in the hub. There are hard copies as well, if anybody would like them, up the front here.